Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. Today I am here with my March reading wrap up. So I'm going to be talking about not all of the books but quite a few of the books I read in March. I had a pretty good reading month. I was a little bit distracted. I was participating in a readathon, but there's so many other books that I was also reading at the same time, so I didn't end up reading as much as I would have liked for the readathon, but I read so much this month. I read a total of 26 books, which sounds crazy, but yeah, quite a few of those were picture books, so that adds up quickly, I would say. But it's still, even though some of those books I read were picture books, I still read quite a lot more than I usually do, so I'm very happy with what I read. The first book that I finished in March, the title translates in English to Are We There Yet? And it's a book about the Dutch theme park Efteling. If you are ever in the Netherlands, I highly recommend you to go. It's so much fun. It's a theme park that's based around fairy tales, mostly European fairy tales, but also some other ones. And I just really like it. It just has such a really cool atmosphere through it that I just kind of miss sometimes in other theme parks where it's just the rides that have a theme, but when you go to the Efteling, the whole park is just so, it's just so lovely there. I love to go there. So I was really interested in reading more about the history of the park because it's actually quite old. So this book that I read, it's mostly a book that has a lot of pictures, and it shows you old ads and things like that, and tells you a bit about the history of the park, which was quite fun. I do feel yeah, it was quite a large book, and towards the end it became a little bit more repetitive, but it was mostly just really fun seeing all the old photographs, black and white photographs of people visiting the park in I don't know, the 60s maybe. It's also one of those books that comes with a lot of extras. I borrowed it from the library so I couldn't look at all of them because I think some of them were missing or sort of taped down to not lose them, but there were postcards and pictures and old tickets that you could take out. I guess they were reprinted, but they looked like old tickets, stuff like that, which I thought was a really nice touch. And it's just, I think this is only a book that's going to interest you if you're very interested in the theme park, but I do feel a lot of Dutch people are and really love the Efteling, so it's just a really fun read, and it just made me so excited to go to Efteling again. It's such a fun place to go. And then I read another Dutch book called Apparent Temperature, which is about the climate crisis, and it's essentially a collection of full interviews with different weather presenters. And I borrowed this from the library as well, and I didn't realise that it was already quite a bit older, because I don't know, I'd never seen the book before, so I kind of assumed there was a recent book, but it's actually from 2018. So it was it was an interesting read, and I was once again reminded of the urgency of the climate crisis and how important it is that we really act now. But I do feel yeah, already climate books from 2018 are kind of outdated already, and the people in the book are very optimistic still about steps that should be taken, that most of the things I think they mentioned in the book that should happen haven't happened at all. So yeah, that's just kind of was a little bit frustrating to read that. And also when it came to, they also talked about their own lifestyles and the changes they made, and I felt they were kind of, at least some of them were seemed very proud of the things they were doing, and it just felt they weren't actually doing that much. One of them mentioned something only going on a holiday by airplane once a year or something. That's not really a sacrifice. I don't know, it's just very strange to me. I haven't flown since 2019. That's kind of when I became aware of the urgency of the climate crisis, and I just didn't want to contribute to that. It's really not that hard to fly, especially if you live in Europe, mainland Europe. It's very easy to get places in a different way, and even if you can't, it's still a luxury to go on holidays far away. And so it just felt kind of strange how they framed certain things as sacrifices that didn't really seem like actual sacrifice to me. But still, it was, I do feel it was good to read something about the climate again, and it got me you know, thinking that I do need to read more, so I started reading The Climate Book by Greta Thunberg, which I'm reading now. It's a quite big book, but it has it's really nice that it has like very short chapters. Like most of them are like 2 to 6 pages, so it's very easy to just read a chapter every now and then, even though it's quite a dense read, but so far I am enjoying that one, but I would like to read a bit more about that topic this year. Then I read another book that's very specific to Dutch culture and folklore, and that is, it translates to something like Life and Works of the Gnome, and this is a book by, I have to check, Rien Poortvliet, who's the illustrator, and Wil Huygens, and especially Rien Poortvliet. He was like a very famous Dutch illustrator. He's mostly known for his illustrations of animals and gnomes as well, and he has like a very particular style that I think is very recognizable, and I do feel maybe if I didn't grow up with this style I wouldn't like it, but I do really like it. It just, I don't know, reading this book, it just reminded me of like cozy things as a child. It's so, yeah, it's just, I really liked it. So I think I said it right, so I like its illustration style. But yeah, this is basically a sort of non-fiction book about gnomes, and just like the authors trying to describe every aspect of yeah, anything really related to gnomes. So like what they do for work, what they eat, where they live, and the illustrations are so cute, I think, especially from their houses, and when like the illustrations where the gnomes interact with other animals. It's very cute, and the reason I started reading this was mostly because I was playing this game called Little Hats, and it's a game that's about gnomes. You basically play a gnome, and it's sort of a survival / exploration game. I've turned off the the settings where you like really have to like survive, and I just like the exploration aspect of it, just this exploring this world and seeing the creatures that are in there. But I know the creator of this game was very much inspired by Dutch folklore, like illustrators like Anton Pieck, but also yeah, the book that I just mentioned, A Life and Works of the Gnome by Rien Poortvliet, I'm pretty sure also had an influence in making this book, making this game. So it was kind of fun to read this book and see some of the elements in the game reflected in it as well. But yeah, if you're very interested in gnomes, I would recommend the book, but also the game. It's really a lot of fun. I don't think, like, it's still being developed, but it's already really fun to kind of just walk around in the world and just, yeah, explore. Then I was kind of in the mood for some romance and rom-coms, so I read a couple of shorter stories, and I also read My Phony Valentine by Courtney Walsh, and this was fun, but it's a sports romance basically about a kind of this woman Poppy. She's from like a small town where she runs a restaurant, and then she kind of ends up fake dating a very famous ice hockey player, and it was cute and I was really enjoying it, but I do feel like it was too, like, they were sort of friends. Like, I don't think it's you kind of know what you're gonna get with these kind of books, but they were sort of friends before they became something more, and I just felt like the whole time it just felt more like they were friends to me. It didn't really feel so convincing as a romance, but it was still like nice. But yeah, I don't know, I was expecting maybe a little bit more from the romance. I just wasn't really feeling the chemistry, I guess, but I was enjoying the book itself, just not as much as a romance, I think. But I was kind of surprised with, because a lot of the time when I read like rom-coms or romances, I find that all the side plots they just seem so uninteresting to me. I just feel like the authors are trying to come up with something to add to the story to make it a little bit more than just a romance, but it kind of isn't really that interesting. But I actually was surprised that I did really enjoy the kind of side plots in this one, so that was really nice. Then I just wanted to mention two of the picture books that I read this month. One of them is, it's again a Dutch book, Is There Anything I Can Do For You by Wilma Koolstra. And this is a book about loss and mourning. It's a picture book, and I think the text could have maybe been a bit stronger in place, but mostly why this book is so interesting is because the pictures in this book are photographs of sort of like landscapes made out of coffee and coffee filters, which is just such a cool concept, and it really works. I think it's really well done. So that was just an interesting one that I wanted to mention. It's quite short, so there's not really much you can say about the content itself, but it's just mostly the concept is really interesting. And I just love kind of books in general that use either like mixed media or just like a really interesting medium to tell the story. So that's why this one piqued my interest, and I love any recommendations that you have for kind of mixed media books or books that just are kind of like this, that use a medium in an interesting and unexpected way. But my favourite picture book from this month was Migration: Incredible Animal Journeys by Mike Unwin and Jenny Desmond. And this is kind of, as the title suggests, it's about animal migration, and it's just on every single page you just see a different animal species, and there's some explanation on where they migrate to and from, and kind of something that's unique about that species. And it's mostly just really nice. It has really nice illustrations. I especially love the cover illustration. I think it's so nice with the contrast. But yeah, the illustrations were really nice, but I ended up liking the text as well. Like it really, to me, it really read like those like animal documentaries. I could like really hear the type of voice. I don't know, there's this particular type of voice that you hear in documentaries about animals, and especially migration sometimes, and it's just, I could hear it when I was reading this, so I felt like that was really well done. And it's interesting because I also read another picture book about migration this month, and it had pretty much the exact same animals in it. So I don't know, I was wondering, like, I'm sure there's more than these animals, but yeah, these are, I guess, the most interesting ones. But yeah, if you are interested in the topic, I think this is definitely a really nice picture book. And then I finished my first book in another language this month, other than Dutch or English, and that was this children's book Drömponnyn by Pia Hagmer in Swedish. It's just a children's book about horses, and I thought this would be like an easy read, or at least like, you know, something that I would easily pick up because the language was so easy, and the language was fine. Like, I didn't struggle with the Swedish, but I wasn't anticipating how much anxiety there would be in this children's book. Like, yes, it's sort of about horses, but even the horse riding aspect of it is kind of, I don't know, it just gave me a lot of anxiety because it's about, well, not a lot, but I don't know, I didn't find myself picking up this book as much as I would have liked. But it's about this girl who, she really wants a horse, and then she eventually is able to buy a horse with help from a nearby farmer. But the horse that she ends up buying is really not, like, she's very difficult to ride, and she feels kind of bad because she, you know, she's pushed so hard to get a horse, and then she hasn't finally gotten a horse, but then she doesn't actually enjoy riding it, so she feels like she can't really tell anyone about the fact that this horse isn't actually like very pleasant to ride, and she's maybe kind of dangerous potentially. So she feels very alone, and she feels like she can't tell anyone about it. So yeah, she's just experiencing a lot of anxiety. And then on top of that, pretty much all the interactions with the other characters have to do with bullying. Like, there's this other girl she's sort of friends with who's being bullied at school, and she doesn't want to be bullied as well, so she's kind of, yeah, she's not always the nicest to her because she doesn't want to be bullied as well, but then she kind of tries to fit in with other girls to prevent from being bullied herself, but those aren't nice girls either. So it's just, I just felt like for a children's book there was quite a lot of anxiety in this one, and that's why it took me quite long to finish it, because it's less than 200 pages. I could have easily finished this. Still, I'm happy that I did read this and I finished this, and I could, you know, understand quite a lot from this. Like, definitely the story was easy to follow. There was sometimes like very specific vocabulary that was related to the farm or to horse riding that I wasn't familiar with, so it's still like good to introduce me to new vocabulary. But yeah, I'm not sad that I don't have the next book in the series. I'm very happy to continue with something else. Maybe I'm gonna read some non-fiction in Swedish after this, but yeah, hopefully next book will be an actual easy read, like in terms of, not just in terms of language, but just it will be happy. I would like some happy stories, please. And then lastly, I want to talk about the book that I read for the Middle-earth road trip readathon, which is quite a mouthful. I didn't end up reading as much for the readathon as I would have liked, because as I mentioned, I read all these other books as well, and I had to return so many books from the library. But I am still quite happy with what I read, because I actually read a couple of books from my own shelf, which hasn't been happening so much in the past couple of months. So that's what's really nice about the readathon. The first one that I finished for this readathon was this one, De Geluksroute, or The Road to Happiness by Anne de Jong. And this is a non-fiction self-help book about your relationship with the people in your life. And I thought this, could be useful maybe, but I enjoyed it. I think there was some good points, some interesting aspects some interesting points that I took away from this. But it did feel, as I feel like with a lot of self-help books, it was just much longer than it needed to be. I felt like it was kind of repetitive, and more towards the end I felt like I was starting to skip sections because I felt like I wasn't really getting anything new out of it. So I feel like this would have been a stronger book if it had been shorter, but still it's brought up some interesting points as well. It's kind of about how you like you might have an initial reaction to something, but maybe, you know, you should pause sometimes and like reflect more on it, and then you can kind of steer the conflicts that's arising in kind of the right direction so that it can be resolved in a good way. And I think, there's definitely good tips in this, I think, but I do feel like it didn't really talk so much about how you might sometimes be in a situation with someone where the way they behave is having a really negative impact on your life, but you're not really able to remove yourself from the situation. Like, say you're living with someone and you can't move out, or you have a boss and you know you need that job because you need the money, and you don't really have the luxury to just say like, I'm gonna look for another job, you know. That's kind of what I was missing here. I feel like most of the relationships that this book talks about are relationships that you really want to keep in your life, and you really want things to go smoothly, but sometimes, you know, there are situations where ideally you would not want these people in your life and you'd like to walk away, and I just felt like that was something that was lacking from this book. But other than that, if you are interested in reading more about, you know, healthy relationships with friends and family, I do think this is an interesting book. Then I read a children's book. This is the second book in a series. It is called It's Nice to Be There, It's Nice to Exist, something like that. It rhymes in Dutch, by Guus Kuijer. And as I mentioned, this is the second book in a series, and this is about just a young girl in kind of a generic larger Dutch city, and she kind of deals with all these different sort of contemporary problems, I would say. Like, it's interesting, I think this book was published in 1999 or 2000, around that time, but it still feels so contemporary. I feel like a lot of the things that she has to deal with are still really relevant today. So I think that just already makes it a really good book. And I think the author is just really good at writing believable children. Like, I could really see children act this way, and I feel like they're really taken seriously by this author. And something I always also really like in this book is that everyone is very flawed. Like, there are, like, especially the adults in this book, like, there's a lot of, pretty much all the adults seem to have some sort of problem, or like something that's like happening in their life which isn't ideal. And I feel like a lot of the time with children's books, a lot of children's books kind of shy away from that, or sometimes it is present, more so nowadays, but then it's like really the focus of the story. Like, you might have a book that really focuses, like a children's book that really focuses on, say, having a parent that has mental health issues and what that does to the child or something like that, but that is really the focus. Where here, no one's problems are really the focus of this book. It just shows that everyone has their own life going on, their own problems, but also their own strengths. And it's so nice because they're all flawed characters, but you kind of care about all of them. Like, yeah, you can kind of see, maybe, I don't know if understand is really the right word, but you could see why these characters act the way they do. You kind of understand where it comes from, at least. And that's so nice about the series. And it's also just very humorous, I find. I love Guus Carr's writing style, and I would definitely continue with this series. Then I read this book, In Name of the Queen by Nicolette Berendsen, and it actually has a title here, An ABC for the Bee. And this is kind of, yeah, it's non-fiction, but with like really nice illustrations. It's sort of a combination of like, the illustrations in the book are a combination of like collage and paint, and all newspaper clippings and things like that. So I picked this up because the author and artist is someone that I'm currently doing an art course with, and really enjoying it. So I was just kind of interested in seeing more of her own work. And it's really nice. Yeah, I always like I mentioned earlier in this video, I really like mixed media, so that was really yeah, nice to see. She has a very clear like personal colour palette that you see in all the pictures, so it all goes really well together. Really enjoyed it, and it's kind of a non-fiction book about the bee, so I actually ended up learning a thing or two about bees, so that was really cool. And I think it's just a really interesting concept. Like, it's not a picture book, it's not really a traditional non-fiction book, it's kind of one of those books that's really difficult to put in one category, but yeah, this was a really lovely read. And then the last book that I finished this month, but also that I finished for the readathon, was Arthur of Albion. And this is a book that I picked up in a charity shop a couple of years ago, and this is just, probably to date, this is still my best thrift shop find. It's just beautifully illustrated. It's absolutely, let me find. It's just absolutely gorgeous, and I have been looking at it. I just find it hard to figure out like how these illustrations were made. Sometimes it seems more like acrylic paint, sometimes more like watercolors, but I can't really figure out, but it's just gorgeous. So yeah, the text from this book is by John Matthews, and the illustrations are by Pavel Dakarnikov, and this is about, as the title suggests, King Arthur, and it's kind of a combination of shorter stories from shorter Arthurian stories, kind of alternated with pages with more like facts, just like just more info on specific elements. Like some pages are about women in the Arthurian world, or like weapons or animals or mythical creatures, so there's some information in between, and then there's some stories, and this was just really, I think it's a really nice introduction to King Arthur and the world of King Arthur. But yeah, I do feel like it's more enjoyable if you already know a little bit about King Arthur, otherwise it might be a little bit confusing. But I just love this so much, and I think the illustrations are gorgeous. I will definitely look up the illustrator and see what else he has illustrated, because it's just beautiful and I'd love to see more of it. But I'm just very happy that I finally read this, because it's been on my shelf for a while and I have so many books about King Arthur that I don't actually read, so it's just good to finally get around to reading it. So yeah, these were not all but quite a few of the books that I read in March. Let me know what you've been reading in March, what has been your favourite book of the month, and maybe I'll see you in another video. Bye!